Hey everyone, welcome to Maximize Your Mind this Monday. I hope you're all excited. Week 6 is kicking off with a bang. We got Frank back again. He's going to be leading us through an amazing session, and we're going to be doing a little bit of chatting. So just remember, if you want to answer a question, use the raise hand function in your Zoom so I can see who wants to talk, and then we'll have a few people chatting throughout. But we'll do a lot of the talking at the end so Frank can make sure he gives us all the information we need to reach our peak. So without further ado, Frank, you can take it away.
Thank you, Justin. Hi, everyone. Good evening on this Monday, Maximize Your Mind Monday. I'm back again, I guess. I love doing this session with you. I think you're going to be learning a lot. I think you're going to enjoy it. I will briefly introduce myself. Most of you have seen it before, I would assume. I'm Frank. I'm a mental performance consultant, sports psych, some people say. I work in sport and help athletes and coaches with kind of the mental game that's happening in sport. And I've been doing this for, I don't know, something like 24 years right now. So it's going to really add up right now. And I love working in sports. That's why I have my nice big heart shirt with all the different sports that are there. And underneath is Alberta. I love Alberta sports. That's what you're part of. I work in very many different sports, and one of the highlights since 2010 is working with Special Olympics, and in particularly Special Olympics Alberta, that you all are part of. So this is I guess the 5th peak program that I'm participating in. And you have been working in this peak program for 5 weeks now. I believe this is week 6 going in. So you're over the hump, you're over halfway. That is probably good. You probably logged some hours, you probably did some exercises, you came higher up onto that mountain that you're trying to climb. And hopefully, in the meantime, you're learning something, because that's always something great, is to be learning something new. And I am actually looking forward to share with you something that I think I don't have necessarily shared with you before. So I'm going to share my screen, and then I have to readjust here. Oh, wait a minute. First presentation mode. There we go. Now I have to go back to Zoom. Share screen, PowerPoint slide. Yeah, you should be able to see this, I think. My Zoom is stuck. There we go. There we go. I think my computer is a little bit slow after a long day of hard work. That's what I think is happening. But my computer is up to speed, I guess. Oh, so there we are. Maximize Your Mind, March 14, 2022. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to dive into the skill of imagery. And I have quite a bit of information to share with you, quite a bit of tips and strategies. I've used this presentation for working in alpine skiing. So you will see some examples from alpine skiing coming through. But I would like you to think about what would be your examples. I know you do all kinds of different sports. So although I have some examples from alpine here, maybe you'd like to think about some of those examples that would exist that would be important in your sport. And as I said, there's lots of information. There's too much to remember. But what I'm asking you to do is think about 1 or 2 takeaways by the end of this presentation, by the end of this session. And I'm going to ask about what those 1 or 2 takeaways are. So these are takeaways that you can relate to, that you can practice, that you think could help you. It doesn't mean that you have to do everything that we're talking about today. And we're also going to do a couple of exercises. So imagery is just one of those skills that I think is part of what we call mental fitness for training and competition. Yeah, physical fitness is important in sport, but I'm working in the area of mental fitness. And the simplest way to explain about what that mental fitness is to basically ask yourself, what do I say to myself? What am I thinking? That's something that we worked on last time. What I see in my mind, what I can see in my mind, what I can focus on. That's something we're going to work on today. Also, what you feel, how you can manage that, and what you do, how you act, how you perform. And these skills are important before you get to training or competition, before your performance, sometimes during your performance, but also afterwards to kind of reflect and think back and kind of, pick out the good parts and maybe make some changes about the parts that you don't like. So that's just to kind of set imagery a little bit. So I have a few questions for you all, and they're on the slide. And here I'm going to invite you to maybe provide some examples about the skill of imagery that you may be already using. So the questions that you can answer is, do you use imagery or visualization? Sometimes we use one or the other term. When do you typically use imagery, if you do? And what do you typically imagine in your sport? So this is a great place for maybe some people that use imagery, is to kind of, put up your hand and share with us maybe an example about how you're using imagery already right now as we speak. Anyone wants to give a good example? Not so much tonight. Okay, that's fine.
We do have Kayla. So Kayla, you can unmute.
Hi. I use imagery right now. When do I use it? I use it before competition if I can.
Yes.
And today I did imagery, which earlier today I did with Special Olympics Ontario. They had a thing for being Olympian.
Oh, good.
So we made medals.
Excellent. Thank you, Kayla. Excellent. That's great to share, Kayla. Thank you so much.
What do you do typically to image it? So I imagine myself winning a medal when I go to competition to get ready for rhythmic gymnastics.
Nice. That's a great example.
This Wednesday.
Yeah, Kayla brings up, the skill of imagery you can definitely use before you compete, before competition. And why not imagine winning a medal? That would be great. Yeah.
Thank you, Kayla. Laura, you can unmute.
I will say I use imagery for my sport with Special Olympics, but also another thing I think I've been using imagery for, because I think I used it today. I listened to some violinist, yes. And with the chords and with the tune that the sounds were making, I was kind of like imagining that like I was like in the room with them, and
nice.
I was also comparing it to when I play, you might laugh at this part, but like I have a ukulele, I do play that sometimes, and another instrument I play, it's kind of a kid one, but I also have a Paw Patrol xylophone.
That's wonderful.
And I like to play both of them, and I just like to kind of just imagine myself in the moment when I play them. That's
great to hear, Laura. Thank you for sharing that. And I particularly like your example of you can actually use imagery not only in sport, but in many other areas of our lives as well. So why wouldn't you actually imagine yourself being in the same room as those musicians, as those violinists? Yes, that's a great example about how you can be really imaginative and help yourself putting yourself in that situation. Thanks, Laura. That's really nice. Thanks for sharing.
Awesome. We'll do two more quick. So Jordan McLeod.
Okay, so I imagine myself getting a gold medal, which I had. So that's my biggest accomplishment. But in my sports, I visualize what mode and game and stuff.
That last part I couldn't hear quite well. Something about the game.
Okay, so I visualize what I'm doing at swimming. So
Right.
if I myself with a game itself.
Yes. Good.
Yeah.
That's a really good example as well, which we will talk about a bit more, is that you can imagine what you're actually doing in your sport, what kind of skills you're actually executing or want to execute. That's a great other example.
Awesome. And Miranda, you can be the last one for this section.
So Frank, I'm sorry I'm late. So I imagine with the Paralympics that happened,
Yes.
Canada placed third in the medal standings, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yes, and Ukraine, I imagine me being a spectator there, just cheering them on.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Yes. Why wouldn't you imagine yourself being a spectator? You know what? In imagery, the sky is the limit. In our minds, we can imagine whatever we want. So we can actually think that we would be in Beijing on the stands cheering on our Paralympians. That's a great example, Miranda. Thank you so much. And, you know, some of these examples I will hit on a little later. So imagery serves different purposes. We can use this skill to actually learn new skills, to actually help to break down the skills and run them through in our minds, and actually help our learning those in those skills, or retain some of these skills that you've already learned over time. And this can even be quite interesting when you're, for example, injured and you're not able to execute your sport because of the injury. You can still run it in your mind, and that's really, really useful. You can use it to help your routines before you compete, as we heard someone already talk about. We can use imagery to reduce some of our competitive anxiety or stress. We can use imagery to enhance confidence or our motivation or our concentration, our focus. So it's a really useful skill for different reasons. Okay. And so this next slide is a little bit that I have a definition on the left side, but you can, you know, it's a little technical, it's a little academic. An individual's capability to form vivid, controllable images and retain them for sufficient time to effect the desired imagery rehearsal. So we kind of rehearse our sport, or what we want to do in our sport, kind of in our mind. That's what it says. And on the right side, you see kind of what is really, really important when we're thinking about what, you know, the best imagery could be like. First of all, we want to make it as real as it gets. I use the term vivid or vividness. I'm not sure if you ever heard of that term, but just to make the image in your mind as real as it gets. So to have clarity, to have sharpness in your image, to have some richness from your senses. You know what the 5 senses are, don't you? Seeing, hearing, touching, feeling. So we're going to do a little bit of an exercise with that. And the other quality that is really important is that you would want to control your images in your mind. You want to do them in a way that is actually useful, that is actually productive. We don't want to necessarily rehearse in our mind how something goes wrong. You can understand that. But let's do an exercise around kind of this idea of making it as clear as possible. So there's a few things that definitely help to do good imagery. And I have a little bit of trouble with my monitor here. Give me a sec. Okay, So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and we're going to do an exercise. And to be doing good imagery, what is really helpful is to do a little bit of relaxation first. You've learned a lot about mindfulness, relaxation, and we know that if we relax our bodies a little bit, if we're getting more clear in our minds, the quality of our imagery and visualization is usually better. So we're going to start off with just a minute or 2 minutes, just some breathing exercises, a little bit of relaxation, and then I'm going to basically read out a script. And with you following that script, I would like you to imagine, visualize what I'm reading out. And these are all examples that we all know of. So there's not going to be any surprises, and it's a pretty fun exercise. I use this often as a warm-up to imagery. Okay, so here we get started. So I would like you to sit back in your chair or on the couch. I would like you to make yourself comfortable. Maybe both feet on the floor, sitting relaxed in your chair. And I would like you to shift your attention to the area of your breathing, somewhere around your belly. As you breathe in, simply feel the breath come in. And as you breathe out, simply feel the breath come out. And try to make this breathing as smooth, as easy, as comfortable as possible. And just notice a nice rhythm in your breathing. The key to rhythm is time. So give yourself time for the in-breath to come all the way in. And give yourself time for the out-breath to come all the way out. And just spend a few seconds just noticing a nice, comfortable, easy rhythm in your breathing. And as you feel maybe a little bit more calm or relaxed with every breath you take, I would like you to imagine seeing a beautiful sunset. I would like you to imagine seeing the face of a good friend. I would like you to imagine seeing a piece of your sport equipment. And I want you to imagine seeing yourself on the court, in the pool, on skis, or maybe at the bowling alley. And at this time, I'd like you to kind of return to your breathing, making sure it's still nice and smooth, easy and rhythmic. And now I want you to imagine hearing the sound of a cracking thunder. I want you to imagine hearing the sound of the referee's whistle. I want you to imagine hearing the sounds in the gym, or in the pool, or on the court. And I want you to imagine hearing the sound of a loud crowd on the stands. And once more, tune back into that area of your breathing, still making sure it's nice and easy and comfortable with a nice rhythm as you breathe in and as you breathe out. And at this time, I'd like you to imagine feeling the touch of an apple when you hold it in your hand. I want you to imagine feeling the water when you're taking a nice warm shower. I want you to imagine feeling the touch of running on grass. And I want you to imagine feeling the touch of the ball, or maybe starting block, or your skis on snow. And one more time, tune back into that area of your breathing, making sure it's still nice and rhythmic, easy and smooth. And this time, I would like you to imagine smelling the fresh air on a winter day. I want you to imagine smelling freshly baked cookies. I want you to imagine smelling the dressing room. I want you to imagine tasting sweat. And I want you to imagine tasting a refreshing drink. Now I invite you to come back to the room, open your eyes. It's the end of this exercise. Now, I hope you like that. I hope you like that little guided imagery exercise where I may have woken up your senses a little bit. You can ask yourself, what was a real, vivid, clear image I had in my mind? Was it something you were seeing, something you're hearing, something you're feeling, something you're tasting or smelling? All of those senses, they contribute to the mental image. Does that make sense? And so we can use those different senses to make the image that we want to work with as real as it gets. So what we see, what we hear, what we feel, what we smell, all of that. That's great. I'm going to share my screen again. Where did we go? Here. And that was the warm-up exercise that we just did around imagery. Remember, you do warm-ups when you get into training, right? When you compete, you do physical warm-up. You make your blood flow, you do your stretches, you do some reps, you get ready to train or to compete. And in the same way, we can use a warm-up to waken up our senses and to imagine some really good things that we can feel good about. Now, I would like to give you some really different options that you can use imagery for in sport. And I'll give you some examples of each of those. So we're going to go into imagining skills. We're going to go into imagining strategy in sport. We're going to go over imagery about our goals that we set for ourselves. We're going to use imagery for our effect. That's a bit of a different word that we can use to talk about our feelings, how we feel. And we can also imagine our own mastery, how we can do things right. So I'm going to give you some examples for each of those. Remember, there's a lot of information. And by the end, I would just want you to kind of focus on one or two things that resonate with you, that you like, that you would like to use with imagery. So again, this is from alpine skiing. You see 4 different alpine skiers that I took pictures of on the same gate. You know, they're all going down this course in training, and they obviously all, you know, doing the same gate. And so we can actually run in our mind, in our imagery, in our visualization, how we would want to execute this skill. So you can see how these athletes, how their position is, where their hands are, where their upper body, how their upper body is positioned in front of the gate, how the angles of their knees go into the skis that are on edges. So these are all kind of small details about kind of rounding these gates. So you can kind of break it down in these types of things and think about, okay, can I actually run through my head this skill of going around these gates? So imagery can be very useful to work on skills or technique. Now, if you're not an alpine skier, but you're a bowler, or if you're a floor hockey player, or if you're a snowshoer, you may want to think about what are the skills or what is the technique that I'm working on that I can use in my imagery. So maybe put in the chat, maybe a skill from your sport that you could use imagery and visualization for. Just type in the chat what type of skill that could be. And I'm going to see if I can find a chat room somewhere. There it is. So what kind of skill could you visualize or imagine in your own sport? Like if it's not alpine skiing, but bowling, what skill would you want to be focusing on? What kind of skill do you work on all the time? Like passing a soccer ball, that's a great example. Taking a shot. What kind of skill would you be working in swimming, for example? Doing flip turns, that's a good one. Balancing, yes. Rolling the ball down the lane there, yes. So now you're starting to see that there's all these different skills that we can look at. Now, do your coaches sometimes give you reminders? Do your coaches sometimes give you corrections? I would bet your coaches do. They tell you how to execute your skills, right? And you can use the coaches' information, their cues, their instruction, their reminders to help you put that skill together and run it through your mind. And as you can see on the slide, you can use this skill of imagery before you execute, so to get ready, but you can also execute it after. If you've done a great turn, a flip over turn, why wouldn't you use it in your imagery? Because you've just done it. It's right there. And like with all skills, imagery also requires a bit of repetition. You want to do it more often to get better at it. So sometimes you do it once, but usually it works better if you do it several times. That's great. So that's skill imagery. Now the next one is a little bit different. I call it strategy imagery. And again, this is a little bit around alpine skiing. So you will see what's the race plan. After the inspection of the course and, to figure out where the gates are, you're making a little bit of a plan. How do I attack this course? How do I go down this course? And so you actually maybe execute that race plan in your mind. You can actually visualize yourself going down that course. You can visualize making your first run. Often in alpine skiing, there's a second run. There's a second run happening as well. So you can actually repeat that. And you can help it in preparing to go down that course. The other thing is something that you've probably worked on a lot already in this peak program and in your sports is working with goals. You're setting goals. You're setting goals to achieve in your training, in your exercise, in your healthy habits, in all of those things. You're setting goals. Can you imagine reaching those goals? Executing on those goals. And, sometimes I ask athletes, what would that ideally look like? What would be the optimal outcome? So that's the best you can think of. Now, the best you can think of doesn't always happen. That's something we strive for. And sometimes we are, having kind of normal outcomes, something that happens more often. That's fine, because that gives some consistency. You're doing these things over and over again. And that's how you get better as well. And you can also think about those goals, breaking them down is, okay, what's the skill aspect, the technical aspect? What's the physical aspect? How strong do I need to be? How much endurance do I need to have? What is the mental focus or the mental aspect that's required? And does equipment play a role? In some sports, equipment does play a big role, like in cross-country skiing, in snowshoeing, and alpine skiing, probably in floor hockey as well, as you're playing with a stick. So all of those equipment pieces can be useful in your own imagery. Sometimes I hope to make it more simple, and that's why I ask athletes often, what is your main focus? Because we can't always think about a dozen different things. So what would be the number one focus that you would want to work with and use that in your imagery as well? Just making it very simple. And then again, you can kind of repeat it for run number one, but also for run number two. Now, I'm going to go to a next piece, and that is, that's an example. And I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this guy. I used to do track and field, so I was always watching a lot of track and field. And many years ago, in 1991, how many years is that? That's like almost 31 years ago. Is that long? I guess so. Mike Powell, that's an American athlete, he broke the world record in long jumping. And he jumped 8 meters and 95 centimeters, which is a huge distance. And he was beating another guy's amazing world record, another American, Bob Beamon, from 1968. And so you can see that these world records hold up a long, long time. And Mike Powell's world record has still not been beaten, which is amazing. And afterwards, I saw an interview with Mike Powell, and he was talking about how imagery helped him to put down this performance. It helped him to prepare for the competition in his rivalry with another famous athlete, Carl Lewis. He imagined how he would be jumping that far, that high. And he would also imagine winning. He would also imagine breaking that record. And this is all what he did before he actually executed. So this is a great example of an athlete that believes in this particular skill, uses the skill, and then executes. So it's just an example that I wanted to share with you. So another option you have is to imagine yourself working through different feelings. I call it sometimes affect. So you see all the smileys, there are some good ones, there's some not so great ones. And these are all part of our normal feelings, and they happen in sport as well. And so can we actually use the skill of imagery to actually do something with this, with your mood, with your emotions, with your feelings, with your energy levels? Can you imagine being really excited? Can you imagine being really nervous? Can you imagine being anxious? And all of those things can happen. Now, can you also imagine that you would actually change that a little bit, that you calm yourself down? Would you be able to imagine yourself calming down? You can do that in your mind, and you know probably how to, with some mindfulness, with some breathing, with some smiling and laughing, and some of those stress is starting to disappear. So we can actually use imagery also to put ourselves in a bit on a little bit of a different mood, a better feeling, so to speak. And we can do that in our mind. And why wouldn't we? That helps us prepare for when it actually happens. And the last one, I think it's the last one. Yes, it's what I call mastery imagery. And this is basically imagining your best performance. Can you think back of your best performance? And if you would want to think about your best performance, ask yourself, how does it make me feel? How did I do it? Can I see it in my mind? Can I replay it in my mind? How I did my best performance. And that really helps us to be a little bit more confident, to be a little bit more happy, to actually embrace a little bit of pressure rather than trying to avoid it. That would be interesting. Is what? This is an exciting moment. Let's do it. That's a different way of thinking. That's a different way of seeing it. So it gives you kind of options. Now, finally, I have a few more words to share with you. You can make it when you're using imagery. I would like you to use a lot of joy, a lot of passion. Think about those times where you were doing your sport and you were really liking it. It probably puts a smile on your face. You probably think back on those good moments. You can use that to your advantage. It maybe comes back through your mind, through your imagery. You can be creative. You don't have to necessarily, follow the exact script. I have some really good examples. Do you know the sport of archery with bow and arrow? And they compete by obviously shooting those arrows to a target. And so they're often affected by wind. So I had this one athlete that was imagining himself as being a metal rod, a metal stake in the ground, being unaffected by the wind. Or I had also a soccer player that was imagining himself as being a wound up spring, ready to take off when the past would come. And so I encourage you to think about these different skills, these different plays, gameplays, these different situations that you would find yourself on in sport, and think about how would you want to do that? How would you want to see yourself doing that? And then start practicing, start practicing running some of those scripts before, to get ready, and maybe afterwards just to enjoy. Now, the last question I have before we go into a last exercise, can you imagine reaching the peak on your climb? Think about that. You're 5 weeks in, 3 more weeks to go, 3 more hard weeks or weeks of hard work and dedication and getting your exercise in and doing all the right things as you're climbing up onto those peaks. Can you imagine reaching it eventually in about 2 or 3 weeks of time? And we're going to do a little bit of an exercise with this. And I call it using imagination, mountain meditation. So we're going to do a meditation exercise. And at this time, I would just invite you to follow along. I will just read out the script, and I'm inviting you to enjoy it. And afterwards, we're going to open up for a few questions, and I would be asking about your takeaways. Okay, here we go. It takes about maybe 7 or 8 minutes. So bear with me. Using the power of imagination to create a sensation-rich experience of a resource state that can deepen the experience of strength, openness, and stability in your body. As you're sitting, begin by sensing into the support you have from the chair or the couch, and pay attention to the actual sensations of your body making contact with the chair. Find a position of stability and poise, your upper body balanced over your hips and shoulders in a comfortable but alert posture. Maybe your hands are on your lap or on your knees. Maybe your arms are hanging by their own weight, like heavy curtains, but they're stable and relaxed. And as so often, take a moment to connect to your breath. As you breathe, let an image form in your mind's eye of the most magnificent or beautiful mountain you know or you have seen. Let it gradually come into greater focus and allow the sense of this mountain to emerge. Its overall shape, its lofty peak or peaks high in the sky, the large base rooted in the bedrock of the Earth's crust, its steep or maybe gently sloping sides. Notice how massive it is, how solid, how unmoving, how beautiful, whether from afar or up close. Perhaps your mountain has snow blanketing its top and maybe trees reaching down to the base, or it may have rugged granite sides. There may be streams and waterfalls cascading down the slopes. It may have one peak or a series of peaks, or meadows and high lakes. Observe and note its qualities, and when you feel ready, bring the image of this mountain into your own body, sitting here, so that your body and the mountain in your mind's eye become one. You share in the massiveness and the stillness and majesty of the mountain. You become the mountain. Grounded in your posture, your head becomes the lofty peak, supported by the rest of your body and affording you a panoramic view. Your shoulders and arms are the sides of the mountain, Your buttocks and legs are the solid base, rooted to your chair or floor, and sensing the overall solidity throughout your pelvis and spine. With each breath, as you continue sitting, you become a little more a breathing mountain, alive and vital, yet unwavering in your inner stillness, completely what you are. Beyond, across the sky, the light and shadows and colors are changing virtually moment by moment in the mountain's stillness. And the surface teems with life and activity. There are streams, melting snow, waterfalls, plants, and wildlife. The bright warming sun, followed by the cool night sky, studded with stars, and the gradual dawning of a new day. There may be rain, clouds, winds, or even snow. Through it all, the mountain just sits, experiencing change in each moment, constantly changing, yet always just being itself. It remains still as the seasons flow into one another and as the weather changes moment by moment and day by day. At this time, I'd like to invite you to come back to the room and to this conversation. You can open your eyes. It's the end of this exercise. I hope you enjoyed that. And just to kind of wrapping things up here, I think the next slide is really important to you, if I'm correct. The password for peak. It's like home. Just make a note of it, take a screenshot, make sure that you can redeem your points to kind of get up higher onto the mountain. And at this time, I am inviting you to kind of share with me or with all of us, what is one takeaway? What are two takeaways that you learned about today? Something that you liked, something that you think you could use in doing your sport. And that's where I'm going to end my sharing. And I just welcome people to share with us what you've learned, what you've liked, what you're going to try.
Awesome. So we will start with Jordan Tyson.
Hi, Jordan.
Hi. Always stay focused, always be strong, staying healthy, always have the energy. And so we had to open our minds, go
Yes.
with the flow.
Yes.
I just heard what happened in the news. Russia got canceled.
Yeah, I know that type of news is really terrible. So we need to take care of ourselves. And you're giving some real good examples and doing it every day.
Thank you, Jordan. Cassie, you can go next.
For me, when you were mentioning like the visualizing,
Mm-hmm.
when you said like mentioning like one of your best friends, I imagined my best friend all the way from Ontario.
Nice. See, you don't, it's always nicer to be with your best friend, but you can still, run the picture in your mind, right? Isn't that nice? That's excellent.
Awesome. Thank you, Cassie. Kaylee, you can go next.
What I learned, the picture of the mountains, it just helped me do some breathing. It's one of
Excellent.
my favorites.
Excellent. And we did do quite a bit of that. I hope you enjoyed that and it helped you.
That it helped me focus on and snowshoeing too. It does help me focus on this breathing is important.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing, Kaylee.
Yep.
Thank you. Danielle, you can go next.
Hello.
Hi.
what I really learned, Frank, was to not worry about not seeing my coworkers as much as I'd like to, but really to focus on the time for myself, my breathing, and hopefully once COVID passes, I will be able to get back to my work.
Oh yeah, that would be good. Can you even imagine getting back to your work, Danielle? Can you imagine that?
Yes, I see them for online workshops, but we can't really talk to them because we're in sessions and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing it. I hope you get back to your work pretty soon. And in the meantime, take good care of yourself.
Thank you, I will.
Thanks, Danielle. Megan August, you can unmute.
So, well, this is a question, actually, Frank. What would be a good takeaway to practice on correction skills while following with instructions?
Okay, that's a really good question. That's an awesome question, Megan. So usually what we want to do is kind of imagine and visualize the correct execution of your skill. That makes sense, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so that's kind of the best starting point. If you can think about how that skill works out like optimal. But sometimes, as you know, it doesn't always go as you want. So then that's where your coach gives you some corrections. Now you're trying to execute that. And once you know what those corrections are, do you think you can run those corrections in your mind?
Yes. And I can also kind of practice on doing things right.
Right.
As well, and doing things like what I'm told to do.
Right. And the beautiful thing is, even if we sometimes make mistakes in our execution in sport, in our mind, we can actually make those corrections. We can actually run the skill in our mind as you wanted to do. So work with that.
So like using like imagery, can that also help kind of practice on like taking those corrections, piecing them together, and then kind of seeing how things work out?
Correct. And you know what? If you do a practice, Megan, if you do a practice and you do it right, you actually make the corrections as your coach is asking you. If you do it correctly, then afterwards, run it through your mind again. You've just done it. So you can actually repeat it in your mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I can like repeat like anything really, like just kind of using my imagery, using anything.
Correct. That's really good. So that's a really good takeaway for you. Yes.
Thank you, Megan. Darby, you can unmute.
Hello, Frank.
Hi, Darby. Good to see you again.
Yeah, so I thought of things with me.
Yeah.
With my imagery, I imagined scoring points with my bocce ball and things.
Yeah.
I miss doing bocce. I'm excited to do it this spring. Thank you.
Yes. And you know what, Darby, what is really nice, although you miss it for real, I mean, you miss it in real life, you can still use your mind to go over those skills and make those throws and make those points. Yes, do so.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good.
Thanks, Darby. Laura, you can unmute.
For me, I would say my takeaway for this one is like to not give up, to go with your goals.
Yes.
Because like I'm also excited for gymnastics to start on Wednesday.
Oh, nice.
We've been waiting for about 2 years for it to begin. So and you know, like I'm a little nervous just because it's a new level 2.
Okay.
And so it's the first time me doing it.
Thanks for
And
sharing. I have a question, or I have a couple of small little questions for you. Really good examples. Can you imagine not giving up and just going after your goals that you set? Can you just imagine that? And does it make you more inclined to actually do it then? That's what imagery can help you with.
Yes.
I have a second question for you, Laura. Even if you're a little bit nervous because it's this next level, can you also imagine to calm yourself down a little bit?
Yeah, I can. And I guess the biggest thing I want to be able to do as well is that I want to be able to understand the coaches, and hopefully they can break down everything I need to know little by little and stuff.
One more point, Laura. Do you remember that last slide where it talked about joy and passion?
Yes, I wrote some of that down.
And why do you think that's really, really important to remember as well?
Yeah, I think, well, when you remember joy and passion and even being creative,
right,
you remember that, kind of like the saying, if you put your mind to it, you can do anything,
Thanks for sharing. You're on the right track, Laura. And I just want you to, be successful with these intentions and making them happen. And you're going to likely enjoy it afterwards for sure.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. And Jordan McLeod, you can unmute.
Okay, so one of my takeaways and stuff that we were talking about earlier, how can I correct myself if I'm not doing a stroke where it's my kind of my weakest strokes, like eye and breath.
Right.
But my favorite strokes is only backstroke.
Yeah.
And style, because those are my strongest swims. Do you know how I can build my weakest strokes?
Right.
But I'm kind of working on, or can I talk to my coaches and help me work myself?
That's a really good question, Jordan. And let me ask you a question first. When you're thinking about your weakest stroke, and I believe you said that was your breaststroke, right? What do your coaches tell you to do? What do they want you to do? What are the coaches telling you?
So when I'm doing my breaststroke, they want me to do what my friend does, Abby.
Yeah.
Push off, like
push off. Yeah.
This, and then push down.
Right.
And I don't know how to do that part.
Okay. So, it's really good what you're doing. You're showing me how it works. And there is kind of two or three parts. You say push back and push down. And can you actually see that in your mind? I know it's hard. It's a hard skill. It's not easy. But can you actually think about pushing back and pushing down?
Not really.
Well, maybe it's helpful if someone shows you. Does it ever happen?
Oh yeah.
And if you look at someone else, can you then see it in your mind?
Yeah.
Because that is sometimes helpful. Sometimes we see it from ourselves in the first person. Sometimes we see someone else do it, and we can start thinking, "Oh, that's how it works." So that is also a way of how you can use that to make it visual, so to speak.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. We are going to go to Jordan Tyson one last time, and that'll be the last question.
So how do we work hard and being active, staying strong and staying healthy. So imagine not to give up on our dreams.
When you work hard, Jordan, how does it look?
If winning a gold, always work hard and staying focused.
And when I would look at you, how would I see that you're working hard? What would I see?
Like competing and
Right.
performing.
Excellent. And that's exactly what you want to be thinking about. That's exactly what you want to be kind of seeing in your mind. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. So it's a great way to go.
Yes.
Awesome.
Well,
thank you,
everyone.
I want to thank everyone for joining us today, but most of all, thank you, Frank, for leading us through those exercises and teaching us about imagery. I hope you guys learned a lot. I did. Imagery, something I liked when I played soccer, so it's something that's always good to use. Just so you guys do know, we do have a dance on Thursday right after social club. So social club is from 5 to 6, and then we have a dance at 7. So I hope you guys are all super excited for that. It was great seeing you all tonight. I will see you all on Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a good night.